I never thought I'd end up in this situation. It wasn't like I was some naive person who couldn't see the cracks in my marriage. I just refused to acknowledge them for as long as I could. But sometimes, things happen that completely knock you off your feet. They hit you so suddenly, so unexpectedly, that you're left wondering if it was all just a bad dream. I was sitting at my kitchen table, alone, at 2 a.m., when I heard the knock on the door. Now, mind you, it's never a good sign when someone knocks on your door at that hour. It's not like I had a ton of late-night visitors. I stood there for a moment, trying to figure out who could be on the other side. Could it be someone from the neighborhood, confused about the time? Or worse, someone trying to sell me something I didn't need? The knocking came again, this time louder, more insistent. I walked over, my mind racing. As I reached for the handle, I didn't know what to expect. But when I opened the door, it was her, Emma, my wife. Except, there was something about her that I didn't recognize. Her eyes were wide, almost frantic, as though she had been running from something. I could see her chest rising and falling rapidly, her breath shallow. She stood there, holding herself in a way that suggested something was horribly wrong. But for the life of me, I couldn't understand what. She stepped in quickly, brushing past me without a word. I closed the door behind her, unsure of how to react. This wasn't the woman I knew. She wasn't acting like herself. "Emma, what's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling. It wasn't that I was scared of her, but something about her presence felt dangerous, like a storm ready to break. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared at the floor, her fingers nervously tapping against the sleeve of her jacket. It was like she was trying to summon the courage to speak, but the words weren't coming. I watched her, waiting. And then, finally, she lifted her eyes to meet mine. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. There was a look in her eyes, a look I couldn't describe, but I knew it wasn't good. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I need you to listen to me." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, but I nodded. She motioned for me to sit down, and I did, unsure of what was about to unfold. I don't know how to say this," she started, pacing in the small living room. "I never meant for things to go this way, but I've been feeling trapped, like I'm living someone else's life, not my own." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. Trapped? Living someone else's life? My mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was saying. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Emma, we've been together for years. What are you talking about?" She paused, looking at me with such an intensity that I almost couldn't bear it. "I need space," she said simply, the words hanging in the air like a challenge. "I need time away from all of this, to figure things out. To figure out who I really am. To figure out if I'm still the person I used to be before we got married." I stared at her, my heart sinking. "You're saying you want a break?" "No," she replied quickly. "Not a break. A real break. A week apart. No contact. No checking in, no texting. Just space. We both need it, I think." The word stung. A week apart. It felt like an eternity. A week without her. Without our routines. Without her smile, her voice, the way she would always kiss me on the cheek before leaving the house. But before I could respond, she cut me off. "I don't want this to be the end," she said, almost pleading, as if trying to reassure both of us. "I just need to think. To breathe." I looked at her, my mind torn between anger and sadness. I wanted to shout, to demand an explanation, to ask her why she was doing this to us. But I didn't. I didn't know how to. I sat there, silent, trying to understand what she was saying. "Why now?" I finally asked, my voice trembling. "Why after all this time? Why now?" She sighed, running her fingers through her hair. "I don't know. I just know that I've been suffocating. I've been holding on to something that isn't there anymore." Those words hit me harder than any slap could. Something that isn't there anymore. That's what I had been afraid of all along. The thought that maybe, after all this time, she didn't love me the way she used to. Maybe she never did. I watched her as she stood up and walked to the door. I didn't know what to say, how to stop her. I just stood there, frozen. "I'll be back in a week," she said, her back to me. "And when I come back, we'll talk. I promise." And just like that, she was gone. As I closed the door behind her, a part of me wanted to collapse in on myself. The house felt too quiet now, as if the silence itself was mocking me. Was this really happening? Was my wife really telling me she needed a week away to think? And if she needed that much time, was there anything left to save? I didn't know. But the next week was going to change everything. The first night alone felt strange. After Emma left, I sat in the living room, staring at the empty space where she usually sat. The silence was deafening. Every corner of the house felt foreign without her presence. I tried to distract myself by watching TV, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying the conversation we'd just had. "I need space," she said. A week apart. I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was going on. Why would she need space now after all this time? Why now, when everything seemed to be okay? We'd had our issues before, sure. We had arguments. We'd been through tough patches. But I always thought that was part of any relationship, right? A bump in the road, a little turbulence. We'd made it through before, and I believed we would again. But this wasn't just a bump. This was different. By the second day, I had convinced myself that I was overthinking it. Maybe I was being paranoid. Emma was just stressed, right? She had a lot on her plate at work, and maybe she just needed to clear her head. I convinced myself that the space would help. It would give both of us the time we needed to reflect, to remember why we loved each other. I tried to keep myself busy. I worked from home, cleaned up around the house, and even met a few friends for lunch to get my mind off things. But as the days went on, the sense of dread grew. It was hard not to check my phone every 5 minutes, hoping to hear from her, even though I knew I shouldn't. I kept telling myself, give her space. Don't smother her. But with every passing hour, the quiet in the house became unbearable. On the third day, I did something I shouldn't have. I checked her social media. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed to know what she was up to. She hadn't posted anything since the night she left, but I noticed something. She'd updated her status to taking time to reflect, and there was a new photo of her in a park, smiling with a friend. A friend I didn't recognize. A wave of jealousy hit me like a freight train. Why was she spending time with this person? And why hadn't she mentioned him to me before? Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe he was just a friend from work. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I told myself it was fine. She was just living her life, like I was living mine. But deep down, something told me that if I didn't do something, I would lose her. On the fourth day, I decided I was done waiting. I couldn't just sit here and hope things would magically get better. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I texted her, asking if we could talk. It wasn't confrontational, just a simple message. But I felt this knot in my stomach as I hit send. What if she didn't want to talk? What if she didn't even care anymore? I waited for what felt like hours, but there was no response. I refreshed my phone, checking it again and again. Nothing. I felt myself sinking deeper into this pit of anxiety and fear. As the evening rolled around, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. The neighborhood was quiet, with only the sound of distant traffic. I didn't expect to see anyone. But as I rounded the corner, I saw something that made my heart stop. There, sitting on a bench near the park, was Emma. And this time, she wasn't alone. The man from the photo, the one I didn't recognize, was sitting beside her. They were talking and laughing, their heads leaning in close as if they were sharing some inside joke. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. The scene in front of me felt like a punch to the gut. Was she already moving on? Was this the kind of reflection she needed? I didn't approach them. Instead, I stepped back into the shadows, watching from a distance. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. Was I losing her? Had she already made up her mind? I couldn't look anymore. I turned around and walked back home, my mind spinning. The idea of confronting her crossed my mind, but I didn't know if I was ready for the truth. Maybe I didn't want to know the truth. By the time I got back to the house, I was numb. I sat on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen, unable to focus on anything. I waited for her to call, to explain what I'd just seen, but the phone never rang. Instead, a few minutes later, a text popped up. From Emma. I need some time. Let's talk in a few days. I'll be in touch. The words sent a chill through me. How was I supposed to wait for her to come back and tell me what was going on? The uncertainty was killing me. The next few days felt like a blur. I spent my time pacing around the house, staring out the window, checking my phone obsessively. But there was nothing. No word from Emma. No explanation. Just silence. I kept telling myself that I should give her the space she'd asked for. After all, that's what she said she needed, right? Space. But the more time passed, the more the silence ate at me. Every corner of the house reminded me of her absence. The smell of her perfume lingered in the bathroom. The empty side of the bed felt like a weight on my chest. I couldn't escape it. Then, on the 6th day, I decided to do something drastic. I couldn't keep waiting in the dark, unsure of what was really going on. So I went to her apartment. I knew it was a bad idea. I knew it was wrong to invade her space, but I couldn't help it. I had to see for myself. I had to know if she was telling me the truth or if something else was happening behind my back. When I got there, my heart was pounding. I stood outside her door, my hand hovering over the doorbell. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. What if she wasn't alone? What if I found something I wasn't prepared to see? But the thought of not knowing was worse. I rang the doorbell, and after a moment, the door opened. It was Emma. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed as if she hadn't slept in days. She looked startled to see me. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice tight with tension. I needed to talk to you," I said, forcing the words out. "I can't keep doing this, Emma. I need answers. What's really going on?" She hesitated, looking over her shoulder as if she were checking if anyone was listening. Then, she stepped back and let me inside. We stood in her small living room, the tension between us thick, almost suffocating. I was trying to read her, trying to understand what was happening, but she was distant, her eyes avoiding mine. "I don't know what you think you're going to find," she said softly, "but I told you I needed space. And I meant it. I didn't want to hurt you, but I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't." Her words stung, but I pressed on. "You're not telling me everything, Emma. I saw you. The guy at the park. Who is he?" For a moment, she froze, her expression hardening. Then, she let out a deep sigh, as if she had been holding something back for far too long. "That's Ben," she said, almost too calmly. "He's a friend from work. We've been talking a lot recently. He's been a good listener." The words hit me like a slap. "A good listener?" I repeated, trying to process what she was saying. "So what? You've been spending all this time with him, while I'm here, wondering if I'm just losing my mind? You've been seeing him behind my back." "No," she said, her voice firm. "I haven't been seeing him. But he's been there for me, in ways you haven't been." She looked at me then, her eyes softening for the first time in days. "I needed someone who wasn't you. And I'm sorry, but that's the truth." The air in the room felt heavy, suffocating. The words she was saying were a dagger to my heart. I didn't know how to react, what to say. My mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of what she was telling me, but nothing made sense. "You're saying that you've been emotionally distant from me because of him?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emma's eyes softened, but the hurt in them was still there. "I never meant for it to get this far. I didn't want to hurt you. But things between us, they haven't been the same for a long time. And I need more than what we have, more than what you've been able to give me." I took a step back, the weight of her words crashing over me. "So what does this mean for us?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Are you leaving me for him?" "No," she said quickly, her face flushing with frustration. "I don't know. I need time to think. I need to figure out what I want." The room felt colder. The silence between us stretched on, longer than it had ever been. My heart was racing, my mind in chaos. Was this the end? Was this what it all boiled down to? A week of space, a man who wasn't me, and a marriage that seemed like it was falling apart right before my eyes. "I can't keep doing this, Emma," I said finally, my voice hoarse. "I can't keep waiting for you to figure things out." She looked at me then, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and something else, something I couldn't quite place. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am. But I can't keep pretending either." And just like that, the wall I had been holding up for so long came crashing down. The truth had finally come out. But at what cost? As I left her apartment that night, the questions continued to swirl in my mind. What was next? Was there a way to fix this? Or was I already too late? I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, Emma's words echoed in my mind. "I need more than what we have." The words haunted me, and for the first time, I wondered if I had been blind to the slow unraveling of our relationship. Had I really not noticed? Or was I just too scared to see it? The next morning, I woke up feeling exhausted, both physically and emotionally. I tried to shake off the conversation from the night before, but it lingered, like a shadow I couldn't escape. I spent the day trying to focus on work, but everything felt distant. My mind kept drifting back to Emma, to Ben, to the man who had seemingly taken my place in her life. By mid-afternoon, I couldn't stand it anymore. I needed answers, more than just what Emma had said. I had to know the truth about what had been going on while I was left in the dark. So, I did something I never thought I would. I went to her office. I knew it was risky. It wasn't exactly the kind of thing you do when trying to salvage a relationship. But at that point, I was desperate for clarity. I needed to see for myself if what she said about Ben was true or if there was something more. I arrived just as Emma was leaving for the day. She was walking quickly toward her car, her head down, lost in thought. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should just turn around and walk away, but then something inside me snapped. I called her name. Emma. I shouted. She stopped in her tracks and looked around, her face instantly tightening when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice strained, almost annoyed. "I need to know the truth," I said, trying to stay calm despite the anger and frustration bubbling up inside me. "Tell me what's really going on between you and Ben." Her expression faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "I've already told you," she said coldly. "We're just friends. Nothing more." But I wasn't convinced. "Are you sure about that? Because every time I ask you about him, you get defensive." "Why?" She paused, her gaze shifting away from mine. For a moment, I thought she might actually tell me the truth, but then she simply shrugged. "I don't know what you want from me, Jason. I'm not hiding anything. I told you I need space. I'm not asking for you to understand, just to respect it." "Respect it?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You're asking me to respect you shutting me out, to respect the fact that you've been spending time with someone else while I've been sitting here, wondering what happened to my wife. What happened to us?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and started walking towards her car again. "Emma, please," I called after her, my voice barely more than a whisper. "Don't walk away from me." But she didn't stop. She got into her car, started the engine, and drove away, leaving me standing there, helpless. I stood there for a long time, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I didn't know what I was looking for anymore. All I knew was that I couldn't just let this go. If Emma wasn't going to give me the answers I needed, I would have to find them on my own. The next day, I found myself outside the cafe where I'd seen her with Ben. I couldn't shake the image of them sitting together, laughing, so easily at ease with one another. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for, but I knew I had to see it for myself. I walked into the cafe, scanning the room. And there they were, sitting at the same table, just like before. But this time, it wasn't just their conversation that caught my attention. It was the way they were looking at each other. The way Ben's hand rested lightly on her arm. The way Emma leaned in close as if they were sharing some secret that no one else could understand. A wave of rage and betrayal washed over me. I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't prepared for how much it would hurt to see her like this, to see her so happy. I stood frozen, just staring at them. My chest tightened, my fists clenched at my sides. I wanted to storm over there, to confront them both, but something held me back. What would I even say? What could I say that would change anything? I left the cafe without a word, my mind racing. I couldn't let this go on any longer. I had to confront Emma, but this time, it wouldn't be just about her needing space. This time, I was going to demand the truth. I couldn't let her keep me in the dark any longer. I couldn't wait any longer. The feeling of uncertainty was tearing me apart. I had seen enough, felt enough, to know something was off, but I still didn't have the full picture. The sight of Emma with Ben, the subtle gestures, the hidden connection, it was all too much. I needed to confront her again, but this time, I wasn't going to hold back. I couldn't. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table, my fingers drumming nervously against the wood. I knew she would be home soon. The plan was simple. When she walked through that door, I would demand the truth. No more dancing around the issue. No more giving her the benefit of the doubt. This was about closure, about finding out whether my worst fears were real. The door creaked open. I looked up, and there she was, standing in the doorway, her tired eyes locking with mine. She looked different, distant, almost like a stranger. For a moment, we just stood there, staring at each other, neither of us knowing how to start. "Emma," I said, my voice steady but raw. "We need to talk. No more avoiding it." She froze. Her hand hovered over her bag, and for a split second, I thought she might turn and walk away again. But she didn't. She just sighed and slowly made her way to the couch, sitting down with a heavy exhale. "Okay," she said softly, her eyes never meeting mine. "Talk." I took a deep breath. "I saw you today. At the cafe. With Ben." Her face instantly went pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words seemed to catch in her throat. I told you before, she started, her voice shaky. He's just a friend. Just a friend. I interrupted, my frustration bubbling over. A friend you spend hours with? A friend you share private moments with? Emma, that doesn't look like just a friend to me. That looks like something more. She was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on her hands in her lap. It's not what you think, Jason. Then explain it to me. I shot back, the anger seeping into my voice. Tell me why you've been hiding it. Why you've been so secretive. Why you can't even tell me the truth about the most basic things. She flinched at my words, but still, she remained silent. I could see the struggle in her eyes, like she was fighting with herself, trying to decide whether or not to let me in on whatever it was she'd been hiding. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how to say this, but I've been feeling disconnected from you for a while. From us. It's like we've been two strangers living together, pretending everything is fine. The words hit me like a slap. I wasn't prepared for that. I thought I knew what was going on, but this was something else. Disconnected? I repeated, my voice thick with disbelief. So you've been spending time with Ben, hiding it from me, because you've been feeling disconnected? That's your explanation? No, she said quickly, her eyes finally meeting mine. It's not just about Ben. I've been looking for something I've been missing for so long, Jason. I didn't want to admit it, but I felt like this for months. And when I met him, when we started talking, it felt easy, comfortable. I didn't expect it to go this far, but I needed someone to talk to, someone who understood. A lump formed in my throat. I felt like the floor was giving out from under me. All this time, I had been thinking there was something wrong with me, but maybe it wasn't just me. Maybe we had both been neglecting what we had, and now it was too late. You didn't tell me, Emma, I whispered. You kept it all from me. You shut me out completely. And now, I don't know what's real anymore. She closed her eyes, the weight of my words clearly sinking in. I know, she admitted. And I'm sorry, but I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I didn't want to hurt you, but I think I already have. The silence stretched between us, thick with the realization that we were both standing at the edge of something we couldn't go back from. The truth was out there now, but it felt like it had shattered everything we'd built. I don't know where to go from here, I said, my voice barely audible. I don't know what to do. She didn't have an answer. She just sat there, her face filled with regret and sadness. She didn't have the words to make it better, and neither did I. I looked at her one last time, trying to figure out if there was anything left worth saving. But as I watched her, I realized something I hadn't fully understood before. It wasn't just her I was trying to hold on to anymore. It was the version of her I thought I knew. The version of us I had convinced myself was real. And now, that version was slipping away. The next few days were a blur. I was caught in a storm of emotions. Anger, betrayal, confusion. But mostly, I was just lost. After the conversation with Emma, it felt like something inside me had broken. I couldn't go back to pretending everything was fine. I couldn't ignore the fact that she'd already moved on, emotionally, from me. But at the same time, I couldn't fully accept the idea of letting her go. She was my wife. I couldn't just erase all the years we had spent together. I tried to focus on work, but it was impossible. Every time I sat at my desk, my mind would wander back to Emma. The image of her with Ben, her face lighting up as they talked, replayed in my head over and over again. I couldn't shake it. I hated how she looked at him, how easy and natural it seemed. While with me, it felt like we were two strangers just going through the motions. By the time Friday rolled around, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to see her again. I needed to understand what was going on, why she had pulled away. I had one last shot to make things right, to figure out if we still had a chance. So, I drove to her apartment. I was nervous as I parked in front of the building, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I had no idea what I was going to say. What could I say that hadn't already been said? I just knew that I had to try. When she opened the door, she looked surprised to see me, but there was no anger in her eyes, just resignation. Jason, what are you doing here? She asked quietly. I need answers, Emma, I said, my voice firm. We need to talk. Not about space, not about time apart, but about us. What's going on? She stood there for a moment, her face unreadable. I told you everything already, she said softly. No, I insisted. You didn't. Not everything. You've been hiding things from me. I know about Ben. I saw you with him. Her eyes shifted, and I could see the guilt in them. but she didn't say anything at first. "I never meant to hurt you," she finally whispered. "But I've been feeling suffocated. I've been trying to make sense of what I want, what I need, and Ben was there. He listened when I felt like you weren't." I stared at her, my heart racing. The words hit harder than I expected. I had known she was pulling away, but to hear her say it out loud, to hear her admit she found comfort in someone else, it crushed me. "I've been here, Emma. I've been here," I said, my voice breaking. "I've tried to listen. I've tried to be the husband you needed, but I didn't know I was losing you. I didn't know I wasn't enough." She looked away, her eyes filling with tears. "You are enough, Jason. But I'm not. I'm not the person I used to be. And I don't know if I can be that person for you anymore." I felt like the ground beneath me had shifted, leaving me unable to stand. It was like everything I had fought for, everything I thought we had built, was crumbling in front of me. "So what does that mean? Are you ending this?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. She shook her head, her face filled with sorrow. "I don't know. I need more time. I don't want to hurt you, but I don't want to keep pretending either." The silence between us was deafening. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, each second stretching longer than the last. I was drowning in it. I wanted to scream, to demand she give me an answer, but I knew she couldn't give me what I needed. After what felt like an eternity, I finally spoke. "I can't keep waiting, Emma. I can't keep living like this." Her face crumpled, and she stepped closer to me. "I'm sorry, Jason. I never wanted to hurt you like this." I closed my eyes, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. "Then why didn't you just tell me sooner? Why let it get to this point?" She shook her head, unable to answer. There were no more words left to say. We stood there, facing each other, both of us trapped in this moment of uncertainty, knowing things had already changed beyond repair. I turned to leave, my heart heavy with the realization that this was it. The relationship I had fought so hard to keep was slipping away, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. As I walked out the door, I knew that this was the beginning of the end. And yet, I still couldn't bring myself to fully let go. The hope that somehow things could be fixed still lingered, even if deep down, I knew it was already too late. The days that followed felt like an endless blur of restless nights and empty hours. Emma and I hadn't spoken much after that last conversation. We exchanged a few texts, but nothing meaningful. She was still distant, still wrapped up in her own thoughts, and I was left to deal with the fallout of everything that had been said. The questions in my head were constant, each one pushing me closer to a breaking point. I spent most of my time avoiding our home, not wanting to face the silence, the empty space where we used to be. But on the fourth day after our conversation, I couldn't avoid it anymore. I needed to know where we stood. I needed to hear the words, even if they were the ones I didn't want to hear. I texted Emma, "We need to talk. For real this time." Her reply came quickly, "Okay." When I arrived at her apartment, I wasn't sure what to expect. My mind raced through 100 different possibilities, each more painful than the last. As I stood at the door, I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I knew this would be the conversation that defined everything. She opened the door slowly, as if she had been expecting me but didn't know what to say. Her eyes were tired, but there was something different in her expression, an emptiness, like she had already given up on us. I stepped inside without a word. We sat down on the couch, the silence hanging heavy in the air between us. "I can't keep doing this, Emma," I said, my voice cracking despite my best efforts. "I need to know where we're headed. I need to know if there's even a chance left for us." She looked away, biting her lip, clearly torn. "I don't have an answer for you, Jason," she said quietly. "I don't know where we're going. I don't know if I even know who I am right now." Her words hit me harder than anything else she had said. It was like she was telling me that I wasn't enough to fix whatever was broken in her. She had given up on herself, on us. And I realized, in that moment, that the person sitting in front of me wasn't the woman I had married. She had changed, and no matter how much I wanted to fight for her, I wasn't sure if she wanted to fight for herself. "Is it him?" I asked, almost too afraid to hear the answer. "Is it Ben? Is that what this is about?" She hesitated. I saw her jaw tighten as she shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Ben. He's been there for me when I needed someone to talk to. But I never meant for it to get this far, Jason. I never planned for it to become something more." I wanted to scream, to demand more answers. But I didn't. I just sat there, processing her words. I had watched the way they were together, the way she looked at him. And now, It felt like all of that was being justified, as if I was the fool for even believing we could be happy again. I don't know if I can keep living like this, I whispered. I don't know if I can keep pretending I'm okay with all of this. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She just stared at me, like she had already made up her mind. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words never came. Instead, she simply nodded and stood up. I need more time, Jason, she said, her voice breaking. I don't know what I need, but I can't give you the answer you want right now. Maybe not ever. Those words were like a knife to the heart. I knew, deep down, that this was the moment everything changed. She was slipping away, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't pull her back. I stood up to leave, not knowing what else to say. As I turned to walk out, I heard her voice behind me. Jason, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. But the apology felt empty. It wasn't enough. I needed more than words. I needed the woman I had married. But the longer I stayed, the more I realized that woman no longer existed. I walked out the door, leaving her behind, and I knew it was the last time I would ever step foot in her apartment again. I didn't know what the future held for me, but I knew it couldn't include her. Not like this. And as I drove home, the weight of that truth settled in. She was gone, and I had no idea how to move forward without her. The weeks after Emma left felt like an eternity. The pain of losing her was still raw, but as time passed, I began to realize something. The weight of uncertainty, of holding on to something that wasn't meant to be, had been suffocating me for far too long. Emma had made her choice, and though it hurt more than I ever thought possible, I had to accept that we were no longer the people we once were. It wasn't easy, but I started to focus on myself, on healing. I picked up old hobbies I had neglected over the years, started working out again, and reconnected with friends I had lost touch with. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was rediscovering who I was outside of the shadow of my marriage. I took long walks in the park, spent quiet evenings with a good book, and found peace in the simple moments. I wasn't alone in this journey. My friends were there, supporting me, pushing me to move forward. They helped me see that I wasn't defined by my past. That sometimes, in order to find the happiness you deserve, you have to let go of what's holding you back, even if it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Months went by, and I found myself in a better place. I realized that my worth wasn't tied to my relationship with Emma or anyone else. I was enough on my own. And in that newfound clarity, I was finally ready to embrace what the future had to offer. Then one day, unexpectedly, I got a message from Emma. It wasn't what I had expected. It wasn't an apology or an explanation. Instead, it was a simple message. I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to check in. I sat there staring at my phone, unsure of how to respond. The old part of me wanted to reach out, to try to fix things, to go back to what we had. But the new version of me, stronger, more confident, knew that I had moved on. I replied with a simple message. I'm doing well. I hope you are too. That was it. No drama, no long conversations about what went wrong. Just a mutual understanding that we had both moved forward, separately, and that was okay. Looking back, I didn't regret the time I had spent with Emma. I learned so much about love, about myself, and about what it truly means to be happy. The pain had been necessary for growth. And though I still carried some scars, I knew they were a part of me, a reminder of how far I had come. Now, I'm starting a new chapter in my life. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm no longer afraid. I've found peace within myself, and for the first time in a long time, I'm excited about the possibilities ahead. And as I take each step forward, I carry with me the lessons of the past, but with hope and optimism for the life I'm creating. Because sometimes, the hardest endings lead to the most beautiful new beginnings.